My name is Diana Meyers. I'm 28 years old, and 15 years ago, my own parents legally and emotionally erased me from their lives when I was just 13, a decision that would quietly shape everything that came after. I grew up in a modest house in southeast Portland, where love was measured, controlled, and unevenly distributed. My older sister Tiffany was the golden child, who looked like my mother, sounded like her, and received everything that came with that resemblance, while I, who took after my late grandmother, existed quietly in the background, never celebrated, never prioritized, and never truly claimed. I learned early that affection in our house was conditional. The moment that reality became undeniable came in the summer of 2010, when I earned a full scholarship to the Oregon STEM Summer Academy at Oregon State University, a competitive 6-week residential program that recognized students with exceptional potential in science and math. It was worth over $4,000 and represented the first time I felt genuinely chosen for something. When my mother found out, she calmly informed me I would be declining it so the family could instead pay for Tiffany's unfunded performing arts camp in California. For the first time in my life, I said no. That single word changed everything. 3 days later, I came home from the public library to find my belongings stuffed into 2 black garbage bags on the front porch. My mother stood in the doorway, arms crossed, already emotionally finished with me. She told me my Uncle Harold would pick me up, and that from that moment on, he was his problem. I sat on that porch alone in the dark for 4 hours, while my family stayed inside, the porch light never turning on. Uncle Harold drove 3 hours through the night from Seattle to get me, wrapped me in a hug, and told me I had a home now. What I didn't know was that while I waited outside, my parents were inside signing a legal document permanently relinquishing their parental rights to me. Uncle Harold didn't just take me in, he rebuilt me. He gave me a room, stability, and unconditional belief. He owned a small but growing commercial real estate company in Seattle, and over the years he taught me discipline, confidence, and how to stand on my own. I excelled in school, graduated valedictorian, earned a finance degree from the University of Washington, became a CPA, and eventually rose to CFO of his company. He called me his daughter long before it was ever written on paper. In 15 years, my biological family reached out only 3 times, each motivated by convenience or money, never concern. When Uncle Harold was diagnosed with terminal heart failure in 2024, he quietly updated his will. He passed away peacefully in February 2025, and 1 week later, my estranged parents resurfaced, confident they were entitled to his fortune. They hired an aggressive attorney and accused me of manipulating a dying man. What they didn't know was that Uncle Harold had anticipated everything. At the will reading, surrounded by charity representatives, auditors, and leadership, the truth was laid bare. Margaret Morrison, his estate attorney, read clause after clause dismantling their claims. My parents were formally disinherited. Their unpaid debt to Harold was documented. Then came the document they had forgotten, the 2010 legal filing, where they voluntarily gave me up. As far as the law was concerned, they were no longer my parents. When Clause 7 was read, the room went silent. Uncle Harold had legally adopted me years earlier. I was his sole heir. His entire estate, worth over $23 million, was mine. My mother stood in shock as Harold's handwritten letter was read aloud, explaining that family is defined by who shows up when everything falls apart. He called me his daughter, said I owed my biological family nothing, and told me he loved me. Their attorney abandoned them mid-hearing when his ethical conflict was exposed, later resulting in his suspension from practicing law. My mother tried one last emotional plea, calling herself my mother, asking to divide the estate fairly, but I calmly reminded her she signed away that right 15 years earlier. Afterward, I didn't feel victorious, just free. I declined reconciliation, maintained my boundaries, and chose peace. Months later, my sister Tiffany reached out with a letter acknowledging her silence that night on the porch, admitting her guilt without excuses. I agreed to cautious, limited contact on my terms. 1 year later, standing outside the first building Uncle Harold ever bought, now bearing his name, I watched the legacy he built continue to grow, funding scholarships for children like the one I once was. I didn't inherit my worth from money or blood. I built it through survival, boundaries, and choosing myself. Uncle Harold taught me that family is a choice, and in the end, the most powerful justice wasn't revenge, it was living well, unapologetically, and free.